Morning, Kishan.
Good morning, Floris.
So we have two articles, one of CIO.com. The article describes, I think, sort of the hidden agenda of the frontier model providers with their forward deployed engineer strategy. And we have the a new stack article, which is, I think, a bit biased towards selling their own stuff also, but it has some good insights into, like, I think, the junior engineer and the job market perspective, especially with regards to forward deployed engineers. I think, like, as per a review a few weeks ago, you mentioned that the front end model provider, frontier model providers are stepping into the game for money, into this implementation and service game. I think the CIO article seems to agree with you on that perspective. I think what do you think about the article, and do you think you're proven right there already, or?
Well, n nobody knows yet, but it's the move that we all saw coming, where AI itself and the models themselves won't really solve the problems. It's people that know how to leverage the systems and that not only leverage the systems, but know how to work with these new tools, the AI tools, but also know about the business. And with those two specific, domains of knowledge and bringing them together makes something like a what they now call a forward deployed engineer one of the most valuable roles there is. It's not unlike what we at Eli 5 normally do. We have, of course, have our specialties into our team where we have specialized developers, but we also have generic, multifaceted developers where they know both the intricacies of a certain framework, language, or technology, but also have knowledge of the business and business processes and do BA. So those two things that are normally separated into two or more different people now become one inside of these FDEs they call. Yeah.
And so the 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 sort of skeptical article, not so much skeptical, but I think more or less like it is, watch out for this article, watch out for the frontier model providers that lure you into um, getting like a service agreement without an end. I think it says here, it says it all. It's not more AI, it's more humans. And also really tying to the software modernization and legacy infrastructure, almost like the returning factor of like the successful or potentially successful implementations is that the legacy infrastructure and the data and the applications just don't work with the out of the box models. It needs to be the whole things need to change, as like here is also like said, many IT operations don't put in the necessary preparatory work to clean their data and make it AI friendly. Like, would that then be something that the forward deployed engineer does? Like, it is very vague to me still, also from these two articles, what the FDA actually does in the enterprise environment. Do you have like a better understanding in their process and their strategy and their day-to-day work, and how value is created by the FDE inside the legacy environment?
Well, there's no set rules of what an FTE is. So it's just a role that they spawned that is basically an amalgamation of a developer and somebody that knows the AI tools and the processes around it and agentic tooling, let's call it like that, but also has knowledge about business analysis, insights into how business processes work, and has the ability to get requirements together from different stakeholders. So it's basically an amalgamation between a developer, somebody that knows DevOps, somebody that knows a BA, but also a project or product manager. There is no, well, never been a role like this. Well, there has been always, they just called it more social developers, I guess, or more business savvy developers. But now they put a name on it. It's similar in structure. It's basically the people that know how to make business processes either simplified or document them properly and then optimize them in such a way that the current business can work with them and build the AI tooling on top of that. So it's I don't think it's something that you can really make tangible. It's different for every business because every business has a different process.
And I understand, but still, like when I was in more in the innovation industry, where you're searching for opportunities that have sort of, I think there are multiple scenarios for an opportunity to fall in. Like you have the quick wins and the strategic bets, for example. I suppose one of the requirements for these FDEs is also to identify the quick wins and strategic projects, right? Because
Definitely.
I think
Yeah.
one of the quotes of this article was also that, or it's actually the other article that says that the people that work inside the enterprise, they only know what they don't want to have when they see something that they don't want to have. So I suppose the FDE needs to also really focus on making a sort of strategic roadmap or something in that way, that where they prioritize certain things to do and not to do, and then show value and then implement that or embed that, so as they say, right?
Yeah, so that's why I also know that it is also an amalgamation of the project management and product owner roles, because those people normally do these things. They figure out what the quick wins are, or at least make a conscious decision on what they process in what priority and what might be a good opportunity to put on the roadmap. But yeah, you would need to do that as well. You would also need to be able to identify how to convince a group of people that a certain technology or certain implementation would work for them and prototype that or demo that in a certain way. So it's normally what would happen is it would be a team of people that we put on this, probably here as well, but it would be more of a not multidisciplinary disciplinary team like you usually have, but it would be a team that has people that are multidisciplinary. They can have different hats and they work as together as a team. Maybe somebody's stronger in the AI things than the other, but they all know the generics on how to set these things up.
Okay, so I might say something, or
Sorry to interrupt you, but it might be more, the better analogy might be more a full stack developer, right? You in the past you had backend developer separated from a DevOps engineer, separated from a front end engineer, separated from somebody that did sysadmin, right? All those different people would work together, but then all of a sudden came the role full stack engineer. What could that person do? Basically, all of the work combined. It could build end to end a system and deploy it as well. It's basically similar, but then stacked some business on top of it, right? So it's the better analogy might be a full stack engineer that also has business and process knowledge and some savviness on how to sell those things instantly.
so it accumulates, like this the knowledge and expertise accumulates, or
It always
needs to be.
does, yeah.
I cannot imagine, but we're going to talk about that in a sec. How then a junior engineer could become like an FDE, except for maybe if he or she is a sort of trainee in that role. Supposedly that could be the case, but let's stick to this subject first. Like one of the quotes that I read in this article was the following, and I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but I'm going to. I think we think about this subject the same. Getting a demo working in a sandbox environment is 20% of the job, and the other 80% is navigating enterprise SSO, legacy ETL pipelines, regulatory constraints, and the politics of getting production credentials out of the customer security team. So I read that and I think, yeah, I thought, yeah, that is exactly like if you step into an enterprise environment or government environment, you will be this will be such a difficult job for like the average FTE that has no real authority, I suppose. So won't they be stuck really soon in the enterprise politics?
Uh, Maybe, but maybe they will also have certain engagements where they need to have these things set out before they start. We don't know how this will work, right? Because this just started and everyone calls everything FDEs nowadays. I think if we would put some people on a project, somebody in the project that doesn't have any knowledge of what we do would call them forward deployed engineers because we do something with AI and we build a system. But it's not. I don't. I think right now it's just being a blanket term for people that are embedded in a company as they would be if they were an employee, but do more technical stuff rather than just operations or business development, right? I think there will be difficulties, yes, of course, like always. Like I always said, b building a product and coding was never the problem. It's the whole ecosystem around it. I mean, when we build a system for either a larger enterprise or a government comp not well, government organization, most of our time is being spent in getting our stakeholders on board and explaining to them all the different levels that are there, that what we are doing and how we are doing it, and getting them on board instead of actually building the system. Actually building the system is indeed 20% of the work, but also building the system and making it work inside of the environment is a lot of work, as here is noted as well. So I think, yes, there will be issues, but they probably have to be solved by either getting a mandate from the engagement to be able to do these deployments, since I think people are more give more leeway to these new things because they know they cannot hold back as they used to because they will be falling behind. So there will probably be some sign off from higher up that says, hey, these people can do whatever they need to do. Like
Yeah,
usually happens if there's a fire and needs to be so and somebody needs to solve that fire.
yeah. Yeah, but then again, having like support from top management is one thing, but having the participation of people inside the company is a second, of course. But
Of course, there will be. I'm not sure if we will see it actually, because these things, the news tends to only come out when it's either positive for a company that they did something positive and they reached a certain goal. Almost no news is coming out from the companies and the companies they engage with when something doesn't go according to plan, unless
yeah,
there are legal
right.
ramifications involved, right?
Well, we will see their revenue either going up significantly or becoming sort of stable. If they can add value, then that will like, be a successful company, or the service companies will be successful soon enough. But on the other hand, I suppose it is not, and that was also similar in the innovation industry like 10 years ago. It was not so much from the perspective of the lean startup methodology and all. It was not so much about building products within enterprise environments. That was like it was the main objective, but the secondary objective was also to teach people inside the company a way of working and then a way of like understanding new type of like methodologies and processes and tools. So I suppose this can also be really a super important, not so much even side effect, that these FDEs teach the employees the way of working and giving them maybe inside scoops or inside information about how the models interact, and then they can build themselves further upon these models. Would that be something that you think is viable, or is that wishful thinking, as the frontier model providers also want to create probably sort of a lock-in, and as the CIO article also says, they are probably there for a very long time once they're in?
I think there will be certain companies that take over the work, of course, like there always is with any type of outsourcing that helps you build and get ahead. But of course, there will be a ton, probably the largest percentage will just be keep going on with the engagement because either it's not their core business to do what the service companies do, or they just don't have the knowledge and expertise to nurture that inside of their company. So similar to consultancy, they will keep paying for the services that are being given to them. So you're
From your
basically making a vendor lock-in through
Yeah,
something
exactly.
else. Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose that would make argue to use companies like Eli 5 for these kinds of engagements, but then again, Anthropic and OpenAI obviously have a super big advantage in the sense of a cash that they have and the models that they get, or all these insights, first-hand insights of the ones that build the models themselves, they bring into these companies. So I suppose that is a big advantage in this whole thing.
Yeah, they have the name, the model, and the funds behind them to make this work.
Yeah. Well, in this, for example, in this quote, it says like the CIO test is simple. After the forward deployed team leaves, can your organization still operate, monitor, challenge, and safely modify the agentic workflow? If the answer is no, it's not mature yet. And that, I think that says a lot, of course.
Yeah, and that will probably be the case for, I think, 70-80% of the companies that engage in this.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, this is a pretty grim article in like basically also saying here 70% of the enterprises will be forced to abandon agentic AI solutions from FDE-led engagement because of high vendor cost and lack of internal skills to involve them independently. So I suppose all these warnings, I think they come from people that know their stuff, and I think they need to be taken seriously, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not as if you can put somebody that knows everything about how these AI tools work and how your business works inside of your company, let them work for 2 years, remove them, and everything will keep running. It's not how it works. You need to educate people, you need to get them on board, you need to embed it into your company. But that's where most of these things just get lost. Also, with the whole digital transformation thing, right? It's the same thing. Now we just to call it AI and do the same thing, but with a different tool. With the whole digital transformation movement that was a couple years ago, people thought, if I buy this software tool, it will save our company or make us work 100% more efficient. It didn't happen because putting the tool in doesn't make it magically work. You need to get people on board, educate them, make them embed the tool in their current processes or change the processes. Those kinds of things didn't happen everywhere because that's why we have so many horror stories about these transformation trajectories, right? Because these things didn't happen. They built the software, they built the tooling, put it inside of a company and say good luck, and nothing happened, and things just get broken and got lost or didn't work. So they had to revert back. But also a bigger problem with these things nowadays that were less a problem with a new tool is that right now you need to have your whole company basically documented, but also all the data around it documented. What we talked about before is that these tools rely on accurate data and they rely on accurate descriptions of the landscape. If you don't have that, which a lot of the companies don't have, it just doesn't work. Even if you put 10 of these FDEs inside of them, they will build probably something really nice that can interface with what you have. But if you remove them and let it run for a month, things will probably break because you didn't change your underlying process.
Yeah. Yeah. From a maybe that's a difficult question to answer without a specific use case, but suppose you are the FDE and you're asked by like an SME, like a small, like maybe more or less a medium to large enterprise, and they ask you to look at what can we do with LLMs, with AI into our core processes and systems. So let's suppose that's the question, and secondary to the question is, or the objective is to increase value add as soon as possible. Like that can be customer success or customer happiness, all the way to cost reductions or increasing revenue whatsoever. What would you what would you do? What would be your playbook? Like just from the top of your head, thinking about the technology, processes, and people, like these three perspectives. I assume you would also look at like the infrastructure and the applications and all these things that are in place. So you have sort of as is situation, and probably you have something of like a long-term strategy that you're going to evolve. But I suppose you also want to have like super quick wins. Like, suppose you would be the guy. What would you do?
So for most of these things where you need to implement tooling, AI tooling in this case, into a company that doesn't use it at all, but also doesn't know how to leverage it, the first thing we would do is identify some use cases and make some prototypes to figure out where the biggest gains are. Just very simple mock-ups or prototypes with the things we know we can solve if we have the data. That will probably be the first thing and pick a top five out of that and then investigate further. Okay, what is the current landscape like to support these different solutions on to make them actually work? And then from there on, make a matrix. Okay, how much effort it would take for all these different use cases that we made the top 5 of them to figure out, okay, what is the lowest effort we need to get them into a production environment? Because some might need a complete new data structure, which is, 10 on 10 on the effort, and some might be able to work on what they have right now, but might need a different user interface, which is, I don't know, let's say 4 out of 10 of effort. And then from there on, we have a ranked list of what is low effort, high value, because you would basically, have the lowest numbers would make them on top. And then from there on, figure out for each of these, okay, we have a version 1 that can run fast or fast, that can be deployed fast, but might not be completely embedded, but also a roadmap to embed it. Because if we stay on version 1 that is not embedded, it will run forever. It won't be part of the company. So it will basically be a version 1 so people can get used to what it can enable for them. And then the second version, that embedded version, would be worked upon in the background to make it actually part of your company. So that will include, building a support structure internally around the application, educating people, changing work processes, changing maybe parts of the landscape to enable these tools to run inside of the scope of what the enterprise can support themselves, because that's also main part, right? If you leave, they would need to be able to run it without you. And that's where we as ALF5 feel that's a very important thing. So that's why we always have, version 1, quick win. Version 2 is always something that you can manage. We don't do them separate. Well, we do them separately, but we don't scope the one without the other, because we don't want to build something that you don't know how to run unless it's for a very short time. And then you would have a roadmap of these different tools that you can use, but also how to get a path to you actually maintaining them.
I suppose it is sort of I'm reliving my past. So this is sort of you need to have the management also on board, and then even probably do have them doing the selection of projects. So like you identified maybe 10 things that can add value, and then you're going to present them to the board, the management, or the project, the committee, or whatever, and they say, okay, we find this very important because it aligns with our strategy, I suppose, right? So selection, like the selection and maybe even sort of the portfolio management of the initiatives brings back some memories. How would you go about the participation of the employees? So what would you ask from the company in the sense of what do you need from the company when doing this, except for the obvious, of course, like if you want to have insights in a certain system or business rules, you need to have these persons, obviously. But do you have other requirements that you really want to have from the company that are also blockers if you wouldn't have them?
Yeah, a representative test group that can actually feed us with feedback early in the process. That would be
Like,
key, because without the actual people that would use it or would enable other people to use it on board early on, you would not build something that is useful. Sorry, storm FDE. Do I need to push forward?
ik hoor het, ja, het stoort mij hard. Ik cut dit stuk wel even
Zie je
uit.
dit? Oh, je ziet het niet.
Ik zie het niet, maar ik
Het
hoor
is
het
echt
wel.
hagelstenen. Zo. Als jij dit al hoort, nou goed.
Ja, ik hoor het. Nu is het wel weg.
Nee, wacht. Ja,
Is
als
jouw
ik hier ga
background
staan.
noise reduction weg? Of?
Nee, maar het is.
Nee, het wordt nu weggefilterd.
Ja, omdat het nu zachter is. Net is het gewoon heel hard omdat het op het dak gaat.
Kijk, nee, maar dat knippen we eruit.
Ja.
Even kijken. Even kijken. Zal ik even die vraag opnieuw stellen?
Ja, wacht even. Laat maar even.
Ik weet echt niet meer wat de vraag precies was. Oh ja, ik weet het weer.
Oké, ja.
So these resources that you or the things that you would like to have or need, what could potentially be blockers if you don't have them from the organization to actually create the value that you want to create, what are the things that you need from the organization?
So we always ask for a representative user group early on that has influence on what we build. So either they help create the priorities with us and then test along the line, or it's a steering committee that creates these guidelines of what we need to build, and there's an actual representative user group that validates that what we build is what they want to have. Because without it, we are building something that maybe nobody that actually uses this is familiar with, and that gets put into the lab, and they would be having the objective, hey, you need to use it now. That never works. So that's why we always have, stakeholders from all the different parts involved, but also a representative user group that gets involved early on.
And from the perspective of, obviously, you then also need to have certain access to systems, but that comes later after you, yeah, first you do the prototyping and then the embedding, and come with the embedding, then all the compliance and the collaboration more or less with the existing organization comes. I suppose it's clear. I think the devil is in the details, obviously, which has also been said in this quote. Like for the, it was like sort of the narrative was buy the model, automate the work, reduce the people, capture the savings. It is board friendly and deeply incomplete. I suppose that is exactly what we already knew that was the case, because of these enterprises that are like collections of exemptions, legacy systems, fragile integrations, access controls, undocumented workarounds. It's exactly what was expected. So I'm actually surprised that we didn't saw this coming like a year ago already, that we actually didn't discuss this. But this was like, in hindsight, it was very logical that this was going to happen, I suppose, with the FDEs.
I think so, yeah, because as I said, putting a technology in doesn't fix the problem. You need people to know how to work it and how to embed it.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe the job apocalypse is very over exaggerated.
Well, there is one thing that can be said about this whole job apocalypse is that the if they the developers that are traditionally taught, they would need to adapt because traditional development is the basic backbone of this, but you would need to know these tools to also explain what, they can and cannot do. You need to have the ingrained knowledge that you get from a traditional education into software development to know how to build systems, but you would also need to know how to steer these AI tooling into a certain direction that you would have the knowledge of on how to actually build it. Because these tools have a very generic knowledge of an architecture, as we talked about before, but they don't know anything about the environment you are sitting in, and you are the expert of that, and you can make the decisions upon that. So traditional software engineering usually worked with you gather requirements to start building it, but that doesn't really work this way anymore. Still need to gather the requirements, and building it is something you do together now.
So bringing that together with things that we have been discussing, as for example, disappearing of the junior engineers, or actually the vacancies of the junior engineers. We at Eli 5 don't have junior engineering vacancies for years, I suppose already, or maybe let's say for sure 2 years. Then, secondly, we talked earlier about the need for having more empathy and, no, not so much compassion, but empathy. Like you have to talk to not only other people in this role, in the FDE role, a lot, significantly. Like you are a communicator, but you need to also communicate with the system, with the because like with if you are going to develop AI native, you probably will be prompting a lot also, and instructing and orchestrating and managing. So those two things being said, I was wondering a lot already about, okay, what if I was going back to, if I was 18 at this point in time? Like, what would be a good career or study? And this article, the New Stack article, although it's a bit biased in a way, it says something interesting about the forward deployed engineering jobs and how to get them. So as you said, also it requires deep technical skills, which are found in computer science majors. But then also like the problem solving skills and the system thinking, and then specifically the business mindset or acumen, as they call it. Like, it is such a sort of compounded job description of like many roles are all into one, and they sort of make it seem like a junior engineer could become that. But I suppose the only way to become the forward deployed engineer with the skills that they require is to do the job as a sort of a trainee, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think there are certain things you can learn by yourself. You can teach yourself, like you can teach yourself the technical skills if you have a talent for doing this kind of work. You can also teach yourself how to do better systems thinking and how a business works. But yeah, I think you would need a good mentor and a mentorship to be able to do these things in production. You would need to have somebody or a team of people around you that has the knowledge, but also embeds you into these environments to learn the most. Because most of the work that happens around either system modernization or implementing new things into a legacy infrastructure or environment. Let's say the corporate company that is an SME wants to implement AI into their systems somehow. That work is not something you can teach someone. You would need to be embedded inside of a team that has done this before or done similar project before to learn where the nuances are and what is actually expected of you. Because if you come into that job and think you're just going to develop an AI agent for them and be done with it, it's not going to happen. Like most of the work that we all do in an enterprise or government environment is totally not something you get taught at university or school or wherever. It is mostly ingrained around relationships, around stakeholder management, around getting people, together to share your vision, but also on how to communicate your vision in a clear way to a different group of people that might not have your background. Normally in university, you would get taught how to present your views onto your companion students, right? They all have the same type of knowledge or the type of expertise. Right now, you would need to share your prototype or demo in such a way that maybe a board of directors might be, engaged in it, or it will foot the bill for you, or some kind of steering group that might not have the knowledge that you think they have, but they do have the ability to make your project go or not.
Yeah, you have to have a really good understanding of what is important for that specific business, and then
Exactly.
so I think that is interesting in this, also in this quote, like the non-technical half of the job matters at least as much. I suppose that is exactly what you said also. But then I think the good thing, and then I would want to round that up with a final question. I suppose as it is predicted that there will be a high need for the forward deployed engineers or similar roles in the near future, as we expect the models and all the things that you can do with them to become only more. So it is expected that now it is clear that a human element in this whole thing is super important, and there will be a lot of job opportunities there. I suppose then there will be also companies that have now that are going to offer like sort of the traineeships or the mentorships where the juniors can apply and then can grow into a senior forward deployed engineer, which then this created really actually an opportunity more than anything else for them, right?
Yeah, if the juniors right now also express the AI native development skills, well, not native, but the AI skills that they would need, but also that they have a business acumen or at least some kind of sense on how to to get there or what the problems are, they would probably be hired as a junior just to help out on these things because only seniors won't work because seniors need to have meteors to become a senior or have juniors to become a meteor. If you right now put all the senior engineers onto these projects, nothing much will happen, nothing good will happen because the seniors will probably leave sometime, either to a different job or they will leave for other reasons. There's not an infinite supply of seniors without the path to becoming a senior.
And but I suppose like, that is clear, obviously. But then I was like sort of wondering, or at least I was concerned to where the, because you always need money to go from junior to senior. Like someone needs to pay for that, and now I think there is like a financial incentive also to do that for companies, as the job market is very slim in the sense of like the forward deployed engineers. Also, when I'm not sure if you we can, it is also of course the U.S. rates that are quoted into this article, the salaries. I mean, but that also gives like a signal of like many people that, or not so many people that are able to do that at this point in time. So we need to educate, and there is money to educate. I suppose that is a good way of going from like, then the problem is solved, so to speak.
Yeah, I don't think there still is a problem with the job market, I think, but it changed. I think the sentiment is changing from AI will take all your jobs to, hey, you would need to know how to work with AI to do your job, which is right now, I think, a better perspective. And also, the whole AI will take all your jobs was always a ridiculous premise, in my opinion, which we expressed before. It won't, because the AI cannot do what, all the people are now figuring out the AI cannot do anything without the person being in control, also knowing what needs to be done. So I think there's a big opportunity for these junior developers that have been put aside the past few years to upskill themselves, yes, and sell themselves into these roles because these roles are becoming more important, especially for companies that don't do any kind of development. But I think the main thing is that the bigger companies or the CEOs that had the sense that they would just fire everyone and put AI in place and be done with it. And also the frontier model CEOs that said that, hey, we will not be doing code anymore, which will probably be true for for a part, but the coding was, as I always said, coding was never the problem. It's knowing what to code and how to code it into the environment that you are in. And that sentiment is changing a lot now. So yeah, I think I'm happy with where it's going. It's not optimal still because people still think that these tools will s- do a lot more than the humans will, which it won't, because everything will be put out faster, but humans cannot really work faster to judge what is being put out. So there will still be some kind of funnel where, if a human is in the loop, you cannot really expedite that much anymore. That's also where you see maybe a good recent thing that happened. The YouTuber PewDiePie, he put out a alternative to Hermes and OpenClaw, basically the AI, the agentic tool that he created himself. Right now, I think there are 1,000 pull requests open that are all being made using Claude on his code base, and they all need to be funneled through a certain set of contributors that need to check whether what's being put in is valid and not just malware, because that happens. It's an open source project, but also if it doesn't destroy the whole ecosystem that he's put out and the architecture, because if so many different people are going to put code, and not people actually, so many different agents are going to put out code and make pull requests into a existing code base without having any context of what they are doing from each other, a human needs to be in loop, and that bottleneck is just always going to be there
Though we have artificial super intelligence.
until we have that. Yeah,
Okay.
then we can then we can be worrying about our jobs because then we have something actually intelligent that can make decisions.
Right. Okay. Thanks for your time, Kishan.
Thank you, Floris.